Timely Talks, Timely Talks.
Hey y'all, how's it going? It's Allie back again with Timely Talks with Allie. I know I'm like 2 days late on recording this, but been going through some crazy changes with my twins and some type of bug they've caught, so just kind of been dealing with that, dealing with them in that area. But we are back again with another episode. Today's topic is going to be about how you can determine or figure out your purpose. Now, I know you probably hear like a million, bajillion, fulfillion people talk about this topic. And you might, Google because there's all kinds of blogs on it. So it's like, girl, why is you talking about this? 50 other million people have been talking about this, which is very true. But I'm talking about it today because the I know what my purpose is. And for me, that is a great thing for me to be able to say because I've been looking for it for a very long time, especially after I had my twin girls. As a new mom, the first few months, like you're putting your everything into taking care of these kids or your child, of your baby. They know nothing, they can't do anything by themselves. And so you are their source of food, you're their source of comfort, you're their source of learning, you're their first example of a woman. For dads, you're the first example of a man in their life. And so you're just so focused on making sure that you're doing things the right way. And then if they get sick or they cough wrong, like you are just, I remember just staring at them, just making sure everything was okay. Terrified to let them sleep in their crib by themselves until they got to a certain age. Like just my everything just went into my girls. And I was able to be blessed enough to be able to stay at home with them as long as I have. I'm still at home with them now. And I do need a job. I'm searching for that right now. But like maybe 4 or 5 months in, I had to take a step back because I felt like I had lost who I was. Or not necessarily lost, forgotten who I was. And it's not that I've never known who I was, but it's like you have glimpses of things and then you have passions and you have desires and you're like, well, this must be what it is, or this must be what it is, or this must be who I am, or this must be what I was created for. And it's not saying that you can't do multiple things, but you're always looking for that why am I here on this earth, period? Like, what is it for? What is my life for? What is my value? Like, what was I created for? And I feel like a lot of times, sometimes with people who are suicidal, and I'm not talking about everybody because I'm not very like strong on this topic, but I feel like they lose a purpose or overall idea or goal for who they are and understanding what their purpose is. And so because of that, they don't feel as if they have anything to live for because they don't know it. So, little background about me. So I was initially aiming and thought my purpose in life was to become an opera singer. I went to Kentucky State University for undergrad, and I studied. I was in the opera company there. I was in the concert choir. Went to University of Kentucky for like a year and a half. Studied opera there on a full ride scholarship, biweekly stipend. Like it was perfect. It was a perfect setup for me, and I thought that that was all I wanted to do. Before that in high school, that's all I talked about doing. I just talked about being an opera singer. What are you going to be? I want to be an opera singer. I'm going to be an opera singer. I'm going to study at the top colleges. And then once I'm done at the top colleges and have made my Metropolitan Opera debut, then I'm going to go over to Italy because they respect African American opera singers more. And then once I'm too old to have been singing anymore, to continue singing, then what I'll do is I'll just come back to the States and then teach other people how to sing. That was my life's plan. I had no idea about getting married. I said marriage will fit in there. kids will fit in there somewhere in the midst of me traveling and all those other things. Like, that was my life goal. Parents spent money on it, spent time on it, taking me from one rehearsal to another. It was just a lot. You know what I mean? So that was what I thought my purpose was. And so when I was in graduate school, my first year, my dad passed away. And I didn't really deal with it. Like, I kind of let it happen to me. And sometimes that happens to you. Like, something happens and you're in the middle of, living life. And instead of fully dealing with it then, you just kind of let it happen to you. But in the back of your mind, knowing that at some point you have to deal. And so my first year, so my dad passed away. And then that same first year, within the first few months, my voice teacher, she had heard me sing before. I was in the opera at UK my senior year at Kentucky State University, and I sang in Porgy and Bess. So excited! Porgy and Bess, my first opera, and I just was like determined that Porgy and Bess was just gonna be my life, right? So she heard me sing there, and then when I finally got to the university, she was my voice teacher. And within the first few weeks, she told me she wanted me to go to a voice coach. Not a voice coach. She wanted me to go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor because she thought I had nodules. Now, if you are any type of a singer or you know anything about the voice, speaking, you know that nodules is like you feel like it's a death sentence. So basically, nodules are almost like, they're like little bumps on your vocal folds. They're not cords, they're folds. Just to clear that up. But they're like little bumps on your vocal folds, and they can be a hazard to your singing, can prevent you from being able to do certain things. And so, sure enough, went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and I had nodules. And the doctor told me they had actually been there a while. So I'm like depressed, crying in the car, like, oh my gosh, if people knew I had nodules, why would they let me sing like that? Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So my voice teacher told me that we would just be working on becoming vocally healthy the entire year. So that meant I couldn't audition for any parts. I couldn't be in any productions. Like, all I was doing was warm ups and learning like basic songs. And I'm thinking I'm gonna get to graduate school and just be out here singing for the whole world and just getting all the parts. No, I was sat down. And so when I couldn't sing and perform and quote unquote impress people, which was really why I got into singing in the first place, that was like my pocket for getting attention, getting affirmation from people. Like, that was why I did it. That was my root for doing it. Now, that's not saying that singing is not something that God will use in my life or that I'll continue to pursue later on, but at the beginning, that was the reason I got into it. I found that out later on in life. And so what I had to figure out was, who was I without the singing? And because singing had become such a big part of my life, and that's who I identified myself as, it was more so Allison the singer instead of Allison the person that sings. And there's a difference between the two. It's one where you allow it to define yourself, and then there's another one where it just becomes a part of who you are. And so it had become what I defined myself as. And so since I didn't have that, I had to go on this journey to figure out who I was. It's because I couldn't sing, the way that I had been doing in the past. So I began to really observe the people around me that were also in the music program. And these people, they were always studying music, always, translating, always working on the phonetic dictation. Like, this is everything they were doing. They lived, eat, breathe music, classical music. And that just wasn't my overall passion. Like, I saw the passion that I needed to have in other people, and I realized that I really didn't have it, And so in the middle of my second year, I actually left. And one of the reasons that I left was that I decided that this was not all that God had for me. And I put all my eggs into one basket. And when that basket was taken away, I realized I had no eggs left. And so, since it was taken away, I have found that I could exist without it. And because I could exist without it, it was like, well, then this is something I can easily give away, you know. So was done with that, and then got married, and just continued to live life, became a teacher, was just kind of going. I had a job at the YMCA. I was an after school site director. So I started working with kids. And I worked with kids before. That was nothing that was really new. But it seemed as if in my life, my pattern was whenever I worked with kids, it was like I was the leader of the pack. That's just always how it's been. And that's not to brag or say, I just got such great leadership skills. Now I am a great leader. I'm not gonna not, recognize my strengths, but I'm saying I'm not bragging on it, but I'm recognizing, you know, this is a gift that I have. And so when I did the YMCA after school program, it was the same way. I was able to form amazing relationships with these kids from kindergarten all the way up to sixth grade. And like I can recall like a moment, there was a fourth grader, her name was Jaden, and we were in the bathroom, and she had jumped on my back randomly in the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and she just said, "I love you." And that was just an important moment to me. I know she's not my kid, but we had formed such a great relationship that she felt comfortable saying that to me. And just the excitement on their faces whenever they showed up to the after school site we were at, and the fun that they would have, the talks that we would have, you know, me being able to sit down and encourage them and just watch them grow throughout the year. Like I straight cried when the year was over. I had parents coming up to me. We were crying together. Like it was just so amazing to sow into these kids' lives. And then me and my husband, we uprooted from Kentucky and we went to Baltimore. We became teachers, and we were teachers in an inner city school. Now listen, teaching in inner city school ain't no joke. Like teachers really deserve raises. We deserve cars paid for. Like we deserve a lot, especially if we go teach in inner city schools. That's just the truth. But anyway, and so it was a hard experience. I'm not even going to lie about that. I did it through Teach for America. And one of the cons I would say about Teach for America, it's a great program overall. It really does expose students to a variety of different people, and then is somewhat able to raise the bar. But at the same time, I don't think Teach for America is very strong in, helping a teacher really learn how to teach. Like they really help you learn how to relate to students. They help you to learn how to really, address some of the racial division between a teacher and a student and be culturally responsive. That's really great. But I don't think that they're very good in helping you learn how to teach and how to really grow students. So that was my struggle more so than building a community in my classroom. Me and my kids, we were a family. I started with them in fourth grade, and I loved them so much. I was like, I don't want to teach anybody else's kids. I want to teach my kids again. And so I ended up teaching all subjects for fourth and for fifth grade. And I loved my kids. Matter of fact, I still love my kids to this day. Some of them still call me on the phone because, I was able to create a great community in my classroom where kids could feel open enough to talk to me, where kids could feel open enough to, speak to me about things going on in their life. If they're having a bad day, I knew it as soon as they walked in the door. If something's going on with them, I knew it as soon as they walked in the door. If there was drama in my classroom, I was able to, bring it to a halt in a sense. And they would still carry it on outside and things like that. But within my classroom, kids knew there was a standard that they had to uphold. And I held them to that standard. And there was one kid, his name was Tyron, and he came in the middle of the year when I was teaching fourth grade. And this kid he had anger out of control. Like it was crazy. And I'm talking about if you looked at him wrong, why y'all looking at me? Flip a desk, walk out the room, slam the door. That was what I endured probably the last, how long was he there? Maybe 5 or 6 months. That next year, Tyron was a totally different kid. And I started to see the change towards the end of the year. And then at the beginning of the year, he still had some of his tendencies, but he was determined he was going to be a leader, and a great leader at that. And he really became one. Like, people saw the immediate transformation that he had, and it was wonderful to see. It really was. And it happened with a lot of my kids. There were a lot of great changes that took place. Now, I'm not saying every child became just this glorious, wonderful child. No, I still got called the B word. I still got doors slammed. I still got desks flipped over. I still got cussed out, yelled at. All of that stuff still happened. Okay, yes, that happened in the school that I was in. That was a norm, actually, but that's for a whole nother podcast. I mean, you know what I'm saying, whole nother show. But anyway, so I absolutely loved working with my kids, and so when I left, so I could be at home with the girls, and there were times where I was asking, who am I really? And I started to really deal with myself and kind of dig deeper, and you know, different things that affected my life to make me who I am today, and how I wanted to reverse those things. And that's a deeper conversation also for a whole other show. But the other day, well, yesterday, last night, I was sitting with my husband talking to him, and it was almost like a light bulb went off, because I had come to this place. I was feeling kind of sorrowful, I guess, quote unquote. And I was just like, what is my purpose? And then I reminded myself, my purpose is to work with kids. It's to impact kids, influence kids, be there for kids, build a community with kids, build a family with kids, change kids' lives, challenge them to be their best self. That's always what I want to do. I always say that whatever application I have, my goal is to challenge a child to become their best self. And when I had that light bulb, it helped me to realize that I can do that wherever. And because I'm not doing it right now, that's why I feel like I'm purposeless, or that's why I feel like I'm not walking out, what I want to walk out. It's because I'm not doing it. And so I realized that I need to get back to kids. Now, of course, I have 2 babies here of my own that I do. I play with them every day, talk with them every day, watch them grow. And it's something that really just ignites my fire. But I also want to do it with other kids as well. And so the purpose of this show is to let you know that sometimes your purpose is as easy as going back down the line in your life and saying, what is a common thread through everything? What is it that I can seem to do almost flawlessly at times? What's something that when I'm approached with it is very easy for me to come into? It's very easy for me to walk into. I don't need a whole lot of guidance on it. Of course, I could use some sharpening of skills in the area. But what is it that I'm just driven to do? What could I see myself doing for free? If you started a random business the other day, if you start a random business one day and you weren't getting paid for it, but someone said, hey, I'll give you the money to start the business, not to pay yourself, but start the business, what would you do? And mine will be working with kids. I will work with kids. I'll work with young girls to just become their best self. And that is just something that I desire to do. I love working with kids. That's my purpose in life. And I think I ran from it because sometimes working with kids can just be seen as such a lowly job. It doesn't have a whole lot of glitz and glamour. It's not, I'm setting up at the front of the church in the pulpit as the main leader. And I used to be drawn to that. That used to be what I wanted to do. And so sometimes I ran from working with kids or working with youth or really pursuing that because it was like, well, that's not like a frontline job. But in reality, it is. Because if somebody's not building up the kids in the past, if somebody's not building up the kids now, our future and our world is lost. So working with kids, working with youth, that's my passion in life. And that's what I believe and know that I've been called to do. There were so many times I said to people, well, I know I'm called to youth. I know I'm called to kids. I know I can work relationships with kids. That's not what I'm concerned about. I used to always tell my mentor, teacher that would teach for America. She would ask me how I was going or how was my behavior management. I said, well, I'm not worried about behavior management. I said, my classroom's fine. I said, what I'm worried about, is becoming a better teacher for them. So when it comes to your purpose, you have to ask yourself, what is a common thread in my life? What is something that I've been able to do flawlessly throughout my life, kind of do with my eyes closed, back turned, hands tied behind my back? What can I still do? One thing I noticed for me was whenever I was in some type of, group, if there were kids around, I would immediately be drawn to them. And in some instances, they would be drawn to me. Just random conversations would start out of nowhere. They will want to approach me. Hey, what's your name? Or, hey, are those your babies? I remember we were just in Nashville 2 weeks ago, and we were walking around the park with our two girls, me and my husband, and this random group of kids walked up to us, and they were like, "Are those your babies?" We said, "Yeah, they're pretty." And I was like, "Well, you're pretty too." She was like, "Thank you." And we're just talking to these random kids that came out of nowhere, came up to us. Now, mind you, they're adults and stuff in the park, and we didn't have a whole lot of interactions with them. But with the kids, they were almost like drawn to us. There's a kid across the street from where we just moved to, and she was looking out her window, and I'm just coming into the house, and the kid said, "Hey," randomly out of nowhere. Turned around and said, "Hey, how are you?" And we're having this conversation while they're up in their room, coming out the window. So it's just something that God continues to show me that that's it. And I don't have to question it anymore. I don't have to wonder, what kind of job do I need to get into? What do I need to pursue? It's kids. It's youth. It's the building up of a generation. And so if you're searching for your purpose, sometimes you have to look at your past and say, what is it that stands out to me the most? What is it I keep coming back to? What is it that keeps touching my life in some way, shape, or form? And that'll be the beginning phases of you really identifying, what did God create me for? So that is all for this purpose talk on Timely Talks with Allie. And I hope it influenced you in some way. I hope it helps you in some way. If you're working a dead-end job or sitting around wondering, what am I supposed to be doing in my life? Go back and research your life. See what you keep coming back to. See what keeps coming up. And I promise you that will be the beginning stages for you to really determine and understand, God, what did you create me for? This is Allie signing out. Check out the other episodes if you have not already. And subscribe. And if you're feeling this, share with friends, share on all your networks. And I will check you later. Peace.